So my first thing is, what is the multiple intelligence experience, or we call it the MIE? To put it simply, the MIE is a build that provides an immersive, interactive, direct experience of Dr. Howard Gardner's theory, which is that we humans display and can deploy many different kinds of intelligence, not measured by standardized intelligence tests. These are not learning styles. That's important to recognize. Visual or auditory or whatever, well, certainly those can be other ways of accessing information, but rather a variety of intellectual abilities and natural tendencies that often lead people into different kinds of work. Gardner's divided these intellectual abilities into 8 categories. There is no hierarchy among them. They're all equally valid and valuable. That's very important to think about. Why is the MIE on Inspiration Island? Let's look at the slides. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here. Okay? So the first slide, the multiple intelligence experience. On Inspiration Island and Second Life, a whole brain health learning challenge. By whole brain health, this is not in the text. We mean that brain health is a very holistic kind of thing that involves more than just the cognitive facets of our lives, but also emotional and physical. Okay. See if I can get this to move. Okay. I want to introduce us a little bit. The primary purpose of Whole Brain Health, or WBH, is to promote whole brain health and well-being through a research-based lifelong learning program. Are you not getting the speakeasy? Okay. Oh, she just added the things in that I didn't have, that I didn't say. Thank you, Maggie. Our parent organization. Okay, let me do this here. It's a little tricky to do this all together. Our parent organization is the Ageless Mind Project, which is a nonprofit. In Virtual Worlds, we're called Whole Brain Health. In Second Life and on Avicon and OpenSim, we have a region there as well, which we're just developing. Okay, can you all see the, let's see if I can get this to move a little bit. There we go. So slide 3. And I put the same thing that's on the slide into the text here. So if you can't read the slide, you can see the text. Lifelong learning for lifelong well-being. This is what it says. Your brain is a bodily organ that regularly needs new and varied challenges to function at its best and continue developing to the end of life. Second point, the MIE is one example of the many challenges on the island that teach you how to improve your well-being through identifying and using your personal strengths. So this is just one. I wanted to show you one example of the many kinds of things we do here. Number 3, everything you learn and practice in virtual worlds can be transferred to your whole life everywhere. I think this is really important when something we're trying to really explain to people. So here you get a chance to learn and also to practice right within Virtual Worlds. And then you can take what you've learned about yourself and about what works best for you back to your rest of your life as well. Okay, I'm just going to wait a second for people to get settled. There are seats everywhere. I think, let me know if we're running out of places or whatever. Okay, let me move this along. Okay, so here's a graphic. Here you can explore all kinds of intelligence to identify your strongest predispositions. That's what it says at the top. Here is a graphic of the 8 types Gardner has discovered. These are spatial, musical, logical, mathematical, interpersonal, kinesthetic, linguistic, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. These will be described in more detail when we actually tour the MIE. This is giving you the framework of what we're doing here. So this is a good place to ask, what is intelligence? This is what the slide says. This is the question Dr. Howard Gardner set out to answer in the late 1970s and has been exploring ever since. His answer, as of 2018, it's the middle there, intelligence is our strongest innate capacities and potentials. More formally, in his books, he says intelligence is a biopsychological potential to process information that can be activated in a cultural setting to solve problems or create products of value in a culture. These are some of Howard Gardner's books. I used them for this presentation. Notice the emphasis in the definition on cultural relevance. Gardner also points out that intelligence is amoral. That is, it can be used for good or evil ends. In his writings, he insists that intelligence needs to be linked to virtue, although the two are different. In fact, one of his recent books, 5 Minds for the Future, Leadership for the Common Good series, 2006, describes the ethical mind and the respectful mind. Not the same as intelligence. Mind encompasses more than the specific, I guess you could call, computing power of your brain. I wanted to give you some of the criteria, or all the criteria, Gardner uses to distinguish the 8 separate forms of intelligence. He says often people talk about it, but they never actually look at the criteria by which he discovered this, or identified them, I should say. So, the first one is the potential for brain isolation by brain damage, and that comes from biology. And I have more information about what he means by these things, but I don't want to spend the time now. If you ask me afterwards, I can give you that information for each of them. Number 2, its place in evolutionary history, also from biology. In other words, was this something that developed to facilitate human evolution? Number 3, the presence of core operations in the brain. This is from logical analysis. In other words, are there parts of the brain that can be identified as producing these kinds of thinking? 4, susceptibility to encoding via symbolic expression So in other words, people can write based on the linguistic ability and so on, or use mathematical symbols, that kind of thing. Maggie, you're doing a great job. Thank you. Number 5, a distinct developmental progression from developmental psychology. Yes, you don't fumble the way I do. And that has to do with the fact that, you know, people do that 10,000 hours of work to develop something. Number 6, the existence of savants, prodigies, and other exceptional people from developmental psychology, people who show a great ability in one of these areas. He thinks that also contributes to identifying that particular kind of intelligence. Number 7, support from experimental psychology. He says, although he doesn't like measurements, that he thinks that there are ways in which they've done some research on this. And he wants to include that. And number 8, support from psychometric findings, again, from traditional psychological research. So when they have come up with ways to measure things, he looks at those too. Right. Okay, if I'm going too fast or too slow or whatever, just let me know. I'm just trying to make sure you all can follow along. So just put something in chat if you're having a problem with anything, okay? Here's a, okay, I'll do this here. Okay, and that was where actually it was retrieved from, Wikipedia. So here's a sample chart of the kinds of activities one educator has suggested that are most natural for each type of intelligence. I don't know if you can zoom in to see some of them, but this is how they try to use it in schools. So, for example, under visual spatial photographs, picture illustration sketches, under verbal linguistic, you have autobiographies, captions for cartoons. I like that idea. Yeah. And under interpersonal, group work of various kinds, musical rhythmic, even background music in class, rap, jingles, poems. Bodily kinesthetic is using role-playing, for example, sports and games. We'll talk more about these as we go around. Intrapersonal, this is reflective learning, logs and journals, that kind of thing. Logical, mathematical, puzzles, analogies, timelines, Venn diagrams. Yeah, that's great. You're right about role-playing is great because I want to show you how much you can do in Second Life that relates to these things too. And naturalistic, which has to do with creating nature collections, diagrams, charts, mind maps, forecasts, things like that. Okay, I think everybody can find us, don't you? Okay. All right, let me pull back from here. Okay. Okay, and now, if I can do this, get this to move. Okay. Whoops, I went back too far. Okay. Now, here are some questions for you. Gardner recommends staying open to the possibility that you may have more than one intellectual strength. How aware are you of some of your strongest intellectual assets, and how consciously do you deploy them, which is what he is very interested in. Anybody want to throw out any thoughts about this? Into text chat. Okay, so Maggie says, anybody want to write out, to throw out any ideas about this in the chat? KT says, some I'm quite aware of, others have come through accidents and experiments. Emily says, investigating different cultures. So that's the first question. How aware are you of your strongest intellectual strengths, and how consciously do you deploy them? This comes to the idea that we sometimes don't, if we become more conscious, let's put it that way, if we become more conscious of our inner resources, we can actually use them to much greater effect and benefit to ourselves and others. That's a wonderful idea, point Buffy makes. Sometimes when I'm out of my comfort zone, I discover things about myself I didn't know. And that's, I think I'm running my little avatar here as it keeps moving. Come on, don't. Don't do that. Let me go to the side so you can see. Okay. Edmund, good. Can you see there too? Okay. All right. Maggie says, I agree with Buffy. SL has taught me a lot about interpersonal behavior and collaborating and creativity. And Ms. Bass says, all intelligences are in development. We need to activate through metacognition and practice. Exactly. Ellie says, I believe I'm aware, but some was learned, like I feel like I learned better when listening and taking notes. But was that just because that was how I was forced to learn for 20 years? Interesting questions that come up when you start thinking about this, right? And really what I'm asking you is kind of think about this. Yeah. And so the second question I just want to go to is, Gardner also encourages some risk-taking, expanding beyond your natural talents to gain more skill in using other kinds of thinking than your own. And that's one of the points you just made. And I wanted to be sure that people understood that he's not a cookie-cutter kind of person at all in his thinking, Gardner. He believes the more flexibility you have in the ways you can process information in a complex global society, the greater your total well-being. And I added society's well-being too. So the question comes up, how open are you to expanding beyond your intellectual comfort zone to cultivate forms of intelligence that are less innate for you? And Zoe says, I learned more about my MI strengths when I researched to build this. Yes, and you did a great job with so much wonderful information that we've incorporated. And there is a sense of development. That's why those five future minds is important to think about too. KT says, I'm pretty good at following tasty and interesting crumbs that make a trail to different places. Hannah says, I've been interested and actually did some research, but found there was very little information out there on how to build other intelligences. Maggie says, there is a sense of development, and that's why it's important to think about those 5 kinds of mind. And Zoe says, love how you expanded on this build, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Emily says, I'm open, but often don't know where to find the resources. WBH has helped in a very short amount of time. Thank you so much, Emily. We've got, as I said, other places here too that contribute. All of them together help you, I think, develop in new ways. That's the field that I'm involved in and interested in. So I'm going to ask you just, yes, that's wonderful. Lissena, you're absolutely right. And that's so important. Very open and interested. We're all in this together. And I said, okay. Amble along in Second Life, find an interesting door, go take a look. Curiosity is one of the most important and I guess fun character strengths to have. If I maybe just change this. And Gentle notes, Gardner's theories about multiple intelligences were used to combat the racist ranking of various humans on any unilinear basis. For example, phrenology. That's exactly right. Thank you for adding that, Gentle. That was certainly one of the things he talks about in his books, why he developed it, what the history is of this whole development. I couldn't go into all of that here, of course. Okay, so keep these questions I just asked in mind as we tour the MIE. Before we start the tour, though, some credits. Yes, his motivation, and he does a lot against people who attack it, too. He's got a whole book with all kinds of answers to those questions. Okay, I want to give some credit where credit is due here, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out. The MIE build was brought to us by Doris Shepard in 2014, and Zoe is here today. We should give her a round of applause. Clap, please. KT, says, I think being willing to make mistakes and be confused when starting something new is important. Absolutely, absolutely. It's great because she hasn't been able to be here before, and she doesn't have sound, so I'm making sure she knows what's going on. Okay. It's been further developed by Tuya Hines, who could not be here today. She is on vacation. Francisco Koolhoven, Belana Blaze, who runs our wonderful Cold Shop Players. Savannah Anatra, who does a wonderful world music, Sun Vibes. Danny Bellinger helped a great deal with the naturalistic area. She runs, when she is able to, a meditation group here, and me, basically. Okay. I just want to say a little bit more about us now. We're all members of Whole Brain Health, which is a collective of over 30 Second Life residents who've created facilitated programs and interactive activities for brain health here on Inspiration Island. This is how you can contact us. A photo of some members of the collective are here. We did this in the spring. Yes, Tuya made the photo. Couldn't get everybody in at the same time, but it was amazing what we did do. I'd just like to say a few more words about us. We're an intergenerational group ranging in physical world age from our 20s into our 80s. I just turned 80. We've kept growing from our founding in 2013 as kindred spirits. Find us. Yes, amazing that I lived this long, right? Working toward this kind of common purpose has been, for me, one of the best reasons to come to Second Life. The island has 4 sim-sized levels. We've got 30,000 prims, where we offer classes, challenges, and quests at varying degrees of difficulty. Everything is open to the public all the time. Our globe teleporters, created by Max Merlin, give you a menu of over 30 locations on the island. They can take you easily to every destination on the sim, and there's a teleporter right at the entrance. Looks like a globe. Can't miss it. While the focus on brain health is especially important for older adults, I think you agree that it's valuable at any age. For example, high school teachers who've taken our professional development course, New Frontiers in Brain Health, have been able to use what they learn here with their students. So at this point, before we go on the tour, are there any questions or comments that won't take too long? Because I do want to make sure we go on the tour. And then come back. We'll come back, and maybe you could ask those at that time. Would that be okay? So what I'm going to suggest first, let's start our tour of the MIE. Please note that the areas are not arranged in any particular order because there's no hierarchy among intelligences, according to Gardner. Gardner says that we can have, I forgot to do this. Gardner says that we can have high brain power in more than one area, but a single type of intelligence is still likely to be somewhat stronger than the rest. If you click on the sign for each area, let's go over here now and show you. As we go along, you'll get a note card in each area that suggests all the things you can do to explore that type of intelligence. Some are just activities for fun, and some are challenges. To identify your strongest affinities, come back to try at least 3 things suggested on the note cards in each of the 8 areas. You will learn by doing which area you find most comfortable and which frustrates you the fastest. I want to give Tuya Hines full credit for creating these challenges. Today we're doing a whirlwind tour using our cameras to get the lay of the land. Please come back to take the challenges and learn by doing your intellectual strengths. That's kind of how we do it here. This is a great group as well as individual activity. So let's start right here at the kinesthetic area. That's right across behind. I'm going to walk over here. You can just walk through the benches. Or if you want to sit here and just use your camera, you're welcome to do that as well. Whichever works better for you. I'll walk. And it's good for you to walk, you know, it's good for your health. So come on, join me. All right, so to explain better, kinesthetic is body-based intelligence. That means using the body and its parts, hands, mouth, to solve problems or make products. People with this strength include dancers, athletes, craftspeople, and mechanics. Okay. What other fields can you think of that would be in the kinesthetic realm? Could you put them in text? Every time we pause, not so much interior designers as architects, or maybe, no, I'm wrong, excuse me. People who actually, you know, you create with their hands, you're right, interior designers, sculpt, that kind of thing. Now, some of them are going to carry over into art, the artistic as well. Thinker, you got multiple intelligences where, thank you. Yeah, these are great. Movement, anything with movement, people who move stuff around, right. In fact, movers, people who are movers. Who do it well. Remember, it's how you, if you do something really well, it's like those people who, in grocery stores, who have a competition about who can bag the best. It's kind of this. But don't forget, it's intellectual. There are many areas here, but we want to think of it always in terms of what, that if those 8 criteria I talked about are involved in thinking about this as the strongest intelligence. So think about it. Come back and check some of these things out yourself and think about how strong this is for you. You can rank them if you want to for yourself to give you some sense of where you are. Okay. I want to give you a chance to look at some of the chat suggestions. I'm sorry if I don't see them so easily right now, because I do want to make sure we get around and come back and maybe talk some more at that point. Okay. Yeah, people have told me, the teachers who took the course especially said they were somewhat surprised that some were science teachers and they found that that was not necessarily their strongest capacity after all. It was one just near the top, but it wasn't their strongest, which kind of surprised them. Okay. Now, I was just going to say this before I moved on. The challenge I like best for kinesthetic is to use a horse or a bike or a rowboat to tour the island and report on the experience. I'm also partial to walking the island. Our paths are like neural networks deliberately. Yeah, so it's been interesting for people to actually find out that what they thought wasn't necessarily so accurate. Okay, so here we have the musical area. Yes, you're right, KT. I walk around areas to learn them. TP just doesn't work. And you do get a different sense. Okay. This is, we have performances here sometimes. We did it when we had our music day. So musical intelligence, sound-based intelligence, is the ability to produce and make meaning from different types of sound. Marley, you are here. This shows up as skill in performance, composition, and appreciation of musical patterns. Think of Beethoven or the Beatles, or all the musicians in Second Life. Now, I know it's very hard not to go and try to do things, and you're welcome to do that. I'm just going to go myself kind of along so that we don't get stuck here. Yeah, it could be, very much. Any other ideas for musical intelligence? Any other ways you see it being used?
I don't see the sign for musical intelligence. I see it.
It's right to the left of the Dropbox. Right to the left of the Dropbox. Interpretive dance, maybe? Yeah. Rap masters, right. See it now? He wants his tone of voice and his intent be, might be very well be. That's very interesting. Verbal. Yeah. Intonation patterns, great. These are wonderful ideas. We still keep developing these places. So as we get new ideas, yes, finding new musical forms, we keep adding, we keep doing new things here. So when you come back, it may look very different in 6 months. Yeah, we did. So we had to move some of the instruments because it got very primmy. You're right. But we have the box of instruments over on the side here that Savannah gave us, so you can take some of those. You know, there are things to take here. Wait a minute, I missed one thing back here. I meant to say, because making music is so popular in Second Life, our challenges encourage using search to expand your knowledge of musicians here. So that's one of the activities. Yes, thank you, Zoe, so much. You are my hero. Our hero, we should say. I know Tia is going to be sorry she missed you. Okay, so I just wanted to give you the sense that, you know, they come in any form here. We can, although the paths walk around, let's walk over next to the linguistic, or the library, the linguistic library. I think I just said that. And if Val is here, we have the data collector right here outside the library. My goodness, those insects are very noisy. I'm going to turn mine down. That's funny. Okay, something like frogs, yes. They could be frogs and insects. Okay, so the linguistic is verbal intelligence, the capacity to analyze information and produce work that involves oral and written language. And this is one of the first two separate forms of thinking that Gardner identified. So this is one of the foundational ones, because he said they're generally used most for the intelligence tests. It's just the point that they're not the only way to measure intelligence, which they seem to be for a long time. People with this strength are often lawyers, public speakers, and writers, translators, and poets. Belana Blaze added a lot to this, and we tried to privilege some female writers as well. And if you go inside later, you will see that you can click on each of the pictures and get information about them. So any other ideas besides, I said, lawyers, public speakers, writers, translators, poets? Any other ideas? Crossword puzzle players, right? Politicians. Punsters. Yes, punsters are very good. Scientists who need to publish results in understandable format, right? Yes, and yes. And we have through, what is his name in Second Life? Will Burns. I have a lot of books that you can, in the library here, where you can go click on them and go to the website and read the books right here in the library. It's a very nice library to sit in. It's even got carols. It reminded me of graduate school. Oh, really, Hannah? Oh. Yes, editors, English teachers, translators. Okay. Yes, he does great books. I've got really some interesting ones, some classics and some newer ones here. Okay, great. So one of the more challenging tasks is to visit our walk-in brain and write an ode to it. And that's kind of a fun one. Almost everybody picks that one to do. We do have a walk-in brain on the island. All right. Yeah. So let's walk over here to the spatial or visual intelligence area. And this is a photo studio partly. We have a little more work to do on it. Some of these things are going to, if you come back, if you find that they're a little out of sync, just let us know, because we have 30 areas, or more than 30 areas in the sim, and keeping them all in shape is a major job. So things do get out of order, and we need to hear from people and fix them. Okay, so spatial or visual intelligence is the ability to navigate in 3D spaces, to create and use graphic images. People with this strength can range, I thought this was interesting, from pilots to chess masters. We have a wonderful chess table on the second level here, to surgeons, to artists. What else would you suggest would fit into this kind of thing? Because we need to fill it up more. Maybe we need a car. Organizing things mentally that are out of order. Again, mostly think of it as spatial. Street vendors need this. Yes, yes. How about those cab drivers in London who can find their way around? Landscape architecture, yes. And actually regular architects too. Yeah, designers, right. Finding books by kinesthetic memory. See how they sort of carry over. You have to kind of figure out which of these. Seamstress is following patterns, right. Maybe we can do dressmaking here. Virtual worlders, Thinker said. Yes, that's absolutely true. Museum curators. Knowing where things are in space, how to work with them. Yes, all of those things. That's wonderful. So Max Merlin's public primreser on the top floor is a fun way to play with the elements of building in Second Life. Anybody can use them to and move them around and do all kinds of things to them, to learn how to move stuff, how to make stuff larger, how to make stuff smaller. It's really a wonderful kind of piece that he's given us. Teachers playing lessons up ladder, up understanding. This is wonderful. I'm keeping all this to add. Yeah, packing stuff and moving bands too, right? It's aesthetically, huh? Okay. I missed Lux's. What did she say? Somebody's got their mic open. Could they close it? Garden designers. I'm looking to see what she, packing things in small suitcases. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Now, interpersonal. Okay, let's go over there. That's the refreshment stand or the tea house. Let's see if I can get over here. Okay. All right, so I said here, I'll go back and read it. Interpersonal social intelligence, which means interacting effectively with others through the ability to sense their moods, feelings, temperaments, and motivations. People with this strength include salespeople, teachers, clinicians, negotiators, and leaders of various kinds. Brain trainer here is an AI who will, if you talk to him, he or she, it talks back. Anything else you'd add to the group that I mentioned? I mentioned again, I'll say it again. Teachers, salespeople, clinicians, negotiators, and leaders. Again, to come up with the top strengths those people need to do their jobs well. And Val, I would say superior librarians do that all the time. Coaches, right? I was telling Val that most of my best friends are librarians. Well, don't forget, some people do not have this. And he does separate emotional intelligence from this, by the way, because he says that Daniel Goleman's work actually combines a couple of different things and is not quite doesn't quite fit into the intelligences using the criteria that he developed. One challenge I enjoy here is reading and adding to the notes on the bulletin board. If you click on the various notes, I think you can read what people have written here. That you have to be part of you have to have our group tag on to do it. One way of kind of keeping it from being cluttered by who knows who, right? Yeah, so it's fun to read those things. All right, let me just see where I am in my script here. Okay, so now we're going to have to walk a little distance. You have to follow me back kind of to where we were. Just follow me back here to where we were. We're going over to the mathematical logical. Just to prove that all these things can be done in any order. And it doesn't make difference. So the logical mathematical intelligence means a high capacity for scientific mathematics and logical operations. Gardner makes the point that many psychologists combine strong logical, mathematical, and linguistic abilities, which is probably why standard intelligence tests privilege those two areas. This was the other of the first two intelligences he identified. Philosophers, mathematicians, physicists, and technical people share this talent. Who else would you add? Your turn. Computer folks, coders, right? I was thinking of those, yeah. Teachers and grading. That's great. I'd say builders, anyone needing to make stuff in space that fits. You have to use the math that you within Second Life. And why STEM areas are valued more than humanities. All sorts of analysts, insurance analysts, right. Statisticians, engineers, right. Great. He uses trig, aha. I know a secret now. This station offers several mental challenges, puzzles, and a place to discover some of the number values associated with avatars. It's interesting going in this little building to see your avatar's weight, for example. It's kind of fun. Bank clerks, financiers, right. Okay, now we're going over to the last two. The interpersonal is the cave over here. Yes, pharmacists need to measure quantities in units. We already know that this is the land of giants. Intrapersonal, which is inward-focused intelligence. I think you have to use your camera here. The capacity to understand our own motives, moods, and to use that understanding to regulate our lives. Gardner believes this ability is something everyone needs to cultivate today. We have based many of our activities on Inspiration Island on that philosophy. What works do people high in this ability tend to do, would you say? Meditators, right. Perhaps the activities in the cave suggest some answers. People who study religious or spiritual texts, for example. Good poise. Yes, it's always, remember, it's the excellence with which you do things that tells whether the intelligence is high in them, not just because you do them. People in high-stress jobs like police and soldiers, do you think that they have strong intrapersonal within themselves intelligence? Writers, when they draw on biographical experiences, anyone with high self-awareness and ability to reflect and contemplate, right. That's why he really says this is something he thinks people need to develop themselves. Almost everybody needs to develop, even if they have difficulty with it. To keep calm. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting, Hannah. Everyone in Congress needs this. Yes, you know, that's right. And he connects delayed gratification, goal setting. Yes, I think that Gardner makes the point that interpersonal, intrapersonal were not accepted originally by many people, but he pointed out how you could actually use those 8 criteria to identify them. So now they are accepted. So intelligence number 8, in fact, it's the last intelligence he added to the original 7. In the original book, there were only 7. Is this delightful spot called naturalistic. Let's go up here. This is a lovely area with lots of animals to identify, lots of different things, wonderful other things. Naturalistic intelligence means the ability to identify and use many aspects of the natural world. Biologists, farmers, and ecologists have these abilities most strongly. Any other additions you would make? It could be, or use nature, artists who use nature, landscapes, But this is really more people who use it for their work in the sense of being able to categorize and catalog things. He tries to identify that. Anyone who wants to understand our world. Because remember, I'm trying to distinguish again between being drawn to something emotionally and being able to use it to produce work. I know art could be work, but he's talking more here, trying to identify it as the kind of work that people do environmentally and evolutionary development for humans. Yes, that kind of thing. Just trying to make the distinctions he's trying to make. Zoologists, most ologists, right? And okay, I do want to say, did you see what I said about the aspens back there? That there's a wonderful thing about aspens that Tuya made. And if you sit on the bench, you'll be able to see it when you come back and go through it and learn something, some amazing things about aspens. Pebble hunters, geologists, right, right. Okay, so now I suggested we go back to the center. Go back, get on your benches again for a few minutes. We've got just a few more minutes, but I wanted to sort of finish this up in a more coherent way. You've given us wonderful ideas here today. Thank you all so much. Okay. So we're coming back to the center now. Everybody settled? Just waiting for people to come back. Okay, get settled. So can you see how the MIE is actually a powerful diagnostic tool that also helps you expand your modes of thinking through action? It's one of several tools or resources we have on the island to help you build a personal resource kit for a satisfying life, especially as you grow older. One more thing. Last year, Adrienne Pascal, its name in Second Life, asked to make a video here to show high school teachers what she got from the MIE. She took our New Frontiers in Brain training given through Rockcliffe University. We are part of the Rockcliffe estate. The link to the video is here. I gave it in chat. I didn't want to put it out because it would keep talking as we talked. But later on you can look at it. It's nearly 5 minutes long. In the last 2 minutes she describes the value of this place to her, which I thought was really wonderfully done. Do you have any questions at this point? I would love to have you send me a note card or email with your suggestions and reactions. This is our address again. So any questions, any comments, anything more that I have not covered you're curious about? Just put it in text chat. That's wonderful. That's the idea. Yes, we're getting Emily in here to help us do some more amazing things. And it's true. We keep adding people who add things, add their skills, add their ideas. And that's one of the great pleasures of working together here, that people come up with ideas all the time. Yes? And that's my final statement here in text. And you have the text if you want to be able to come back and look at things and think about them. I will make the slideshow open now so people can use it. Well, thank the people who made this, and I want to again thank Zoe so much for having given this to us. It was very generous. And she has other ideas, which I hope she will be able to bring to us so we can continue adding resources for people. Thank you for coming, and Thank you very much.